What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Tait Talk Sports podcast, back with another NFL edition. Just a quick overview of what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to do a Week 5 recap, see how I did on my picks there, talk a little bit about the Seattle Seahawks. Then I'm going to discuss how Le'Veon Bell went to the Chiefs, and then obviously go over my Week 6 picks and decide who I think is going to win those games. So first things first, let's do a little Week 5 recap. On my picks, I went 10-4, not too bad, not quite as good as last week. But the two games that I want to talk about that kind of hurt me, that I think could have gone the other way, were the Bears versus the Bucks on Thursday night and Raiders versus Chiefs on Sunday. Now, Bears versus Bucks, tough game. Obviously, an interesting ending with Tom Brady seemingly not knowing which down it was. Didn't know it was fourth down, and ended up losing the game almost because of that. I think that was one that the Bucks really should have won. The Bears were obviously good, and that defense kind of stifled the offense of the Bucks, but Bucks got to be better. Should have won that one. Next game, we got Raiders versus the Chiefs. Raiders obviously surprising the Chiefs. I don't know many people who saw that one coming. Obviously, we knew the Raiders were a good team. I thought it was going to be a shootout, but they did a really good job of defending Mahomes. I've seen it been said a couple times on some different sports shows, but it seems like the Chiefs are almost drunk off the talent of Mahomes and watching him do his thing, that they've kind of forgotten to really run an offense. You know, they don't have much of a run game right now. Obviously, I'm going to touch on, the improvements that they've made this week, but they don't have a whole lot of run game. Their defense is somewhat struggling. Obviously, they've got Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and Kelsey, so they can easily turn around, and I think they will turn it around. But a really interesting game. Chiefs should have won it, but they didn't. Next up, I'm going to talk a little bit about my Seattle Seahawks. Thought I'd touch on them this week. Obviously, been a great team so far, at least on the offense. Defense, not so much. But let Russ cook in full effect. He's obviously, I'd say, one of the front runners for MVP candidate. Him and Aaron Rodgers, obviously. He's just been amazing, throwing touchdowns all over the places, a few interceptions here and there, but he's just been so accurate. Besides a few balls on that Sunday night game versus the Vikings, which was an amazing game. It was raining, so he missed some balls. Got to hit him, but he's just been so accurate this year and so good in the pocket, out of the pocket. Just making good decisions, and it's showing with that Seattle offense seemingly winning the games all by themselves, which leads me to that defense, which is struggling. But I want to touch on the fact that they are improving. The other week, they picked up Damon Harrison, also known as Snacks, a defensive tackle who's just a savant at stopping the run. He's going to really help that defensive line, which has struggled to create pressure. He's not exactly, a pass rusher, but maybe he'll create opportunities for other guys on the edge. And also Jamal Adams obviously has not played in 2 weeks with a groin injury. No word yet, but hoping he'll play after this bye week because they are on a bye this week. But I just think they're a great team, and I wanted to touch on them a little bit. Next up, Le'Veon Bell to the Chiefs. This was a big story last week. Le'Veon Bell being dropped by the Jets. It was an interesting thing after they were talking about possibly trading him. But I think it was probably a precedent set by the owner. This is not how we deal with being unhappy. We don't tweet about it. This was just, set an example, which, I think if anything, it worked out for him. But they wanted to set an example. They did what they did. Still a struggling team. Talk about a bit more about that later. But as far as him getting to the Chiefs, some people might think this is bad for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Obviously, the running back for the Chiefs is going to lose some snaps. But I think it is a great thing for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think he's a very similar running back to Le'Veon Bell. I think he's shorter. He's not super fast, but he's elusive. He's strong. He's a good pass catcher. All things that Le'Veon Bell, not so much recently, but in his prime in the Steelers was the best at it, especially receiving. I think it'll be great for him to split snaps and see what Bell does, as long as Bell is somewhat Bell. But even if he isn't, he's got the knowledge that he can teach Edwards-Helaire. But if Bell can be 80% of what Steelers Le'Veon was, the Chiefs have a real run game now. I tell you what, he's going to fit into that Andy Reid system. They're going to be able to throw to him. They're going to be able to run with him. If he's decent enough to run between the tackles and pass catch, he'll be great for that team. And I think it just makes that great Chiefs team even better. It gives them a little bit of a boost, which is what they need coming off that loss to the Raiders. But yeah, I'm really happy with the signing of these Chiefs. Just makes a great team even better. Now we're going to look ahead to my week 6 picks. First game up, Texans versus Titans. Interesting one. Titans obviously playing on Tuesday after that game was delayed, but they did get the win against the Bills. Texans, new management all over the place with Romeo Crennel. Got a good win against the Jaguars last week. But despite that win, I do think the Titans edge them out here. They've got such a strong defense, showed themselves against the Bills, which have just been an offensive force this year. And yet they were still great. Obviously, they've got one of the best run games in the entire league with Derrick Henry. And I don't think the Texans quite have the defense to stop that, at least at this point in time. And obviously the offense is great, but they've got a new coach. Still got to figure some things out. I think the Titans just are they know who they are so well that they just run through teams, and I think they're going to do that here. I'm taking Titans. Next game, we got Ravens versus the Eagles. This is an interesting one. Eagles, on a bit of an uptick, lost the Steelers last week, but Steelers are a great team, very underrated team. And the Ravens obviously got a really nice win last week. Looked good against the Bengals. Defense looked real strong, and that Ravens defense is really the reason why I'm taking them this week. Obviously, the offense speaks for itself. It's Lamar Jackson. It's run game. It's run and shoot all over the place. Great team. I think the Eagles just still don't quite have the receivers to give Wentz the weapons he needs, and that defense is obviously still struggling. I just think the Ravens defense is too strong for this Eagles team, and they're going to be able to get stops. I think it might be somewhat of a shootout, but I do think the Ravens do take it in the end. Next game, we got Falcons versus Vikings. Falcons, obviously, team Dan Quinn just fired on Monday after their loss. Just a team that is skidding. They need to figure out who they are. They got to figure out what they're going to do on each side of the ball. New coach, they're going to have to figure stuff out. Versus the Vikings, who I know they lost against the Seahawks, but they definitely could have and probably should have won that game. They've started slow. Obviously, not going to have Dalvin Cook, but Madison as a backup is a great running back. I think they're a good team. I think the Falcons are a bad team. I'm going to take the Vikings. Next game, we got Browns versus Steelers. Browns, obviously a good team, great running the ball this year. Steelers, even better team. Dominant defensive line. Still, in my opinion, the best defensive line in football. Big Ben is back. He's slinging it all over the place. Chase Claypool is taking the top off defenses. Deontay Johnson's still hurt, but they've got Juju and Claypool. They've got receivers all over the place. James Conner is being serviceable this year. He's staying healthy. And I just think the Browns, with no Nick Chubb, only Kareem Hunt, going against the best defensive line in football, it's probably going to force Baker to throw, and throwing against that Steelers team is hard. I know their secondary hasn't been great this year. Kind of saw that coming in week 1, but I think they mix up enough looks, and they're going to get enough pressure to stop the run and get to Mayfield. I think I'm going to take Steelers here. Next game, we got Bengals versus Colts. This is an interesting one too, kind of somewhat struggling teams. I think Bengals expected more so than the Colts. Colts are an interesting one. They started weak and then kind of picked it up. But Phillip Rivers has just been kind of all over the place. He throwing interceptions, same as he was on the Chargers, not a whole lot different, despite having a much better offensive line. He just throws too many picks, and they're trying to help him by running the ball, and he's still throwing picks. But the Bengals, obviously Joe Burrow, great player, great receivers, great targets, but that defense is just not enough. And I think the Colts have such a good defense. They're going to be able to get to Burrow. They're going to hit Burrow Burrow's been getting hit every week. They really got to figure something out there. The Colts are going to be able to get to him. Their defense is strong enough to get picks on a young rookie quarterback. And I just, Rivers throws picks, but that Bengals defense is not even good enough to stop Rivers, I don't think. So I'm going to take the Colts in this one. Next game, we got Lions versus Jaguars, two somewhat struggling teams. Again, Jaguars more expected to struggle this year than the Lions. The Lions have been decent. They got a win a few weeks ago and looked good, but it's sort of struggling again. Obviously, the Jaguars got a win early, but struggling since then. I think they're still both great teams, very underrated teams. But I do think that the Lions take this one. I think they're a much better all-around team, got a few more stars in certain places. Stafford, great quarterback, great receivers, good running backs, a few good players on, a few good young players on defense. I think they're a good team, and I'm going to take the Lions. Next game, Bears versus Panthers. Bears coming off a good win 10 days ago against the Bucks. Obviously, probably feeling good about that. But the Panthers also coming off a great win. They looked real good last week. A lot of people think they're going to start to make a run. And I tell you what, I'm one of them. The Bears are, I don't think they're as good as their record says. Foles is just not a great quarterback. Despite winning that game, he missed a lot of throws, a lot of easy throws that would have been either touchdowns or big gains, and he missed them. I think the Panthers are hot. Mike Davis is filling in for McCaffrey. Great. I'm going to take the Panthers. Next game, Washington football team versus the Giants, two teams at the bottom of the league. Not great teams. Obviously, Alex Smith playing last week, which was great to see. Obviously, comeback player of the year. Pretty amazing, but they cannot keep him out there. He does not deserve to be thrown to the wolves. I think that Kyle Allen will probably be playing at quarterback. And I think the Giants, despite losing a lot of games, they do have the talent, and I do think they do get chunk plays. I don't think that Washington defense is going to be able to do a whole lot besides Chase Young, who is just dominant already this early in his career. But I do think the Giants are going to be able to outscore him here. I'm going to take the Giants. Next game, which is a bit of a question mark, it's Broncos versus Patriots. Patriots, as of the day I'm recording, which is Friday, just had another positive COVID test, which is a few weeks after Cam had a test, which is not bode well for them playing on Sunday. They've already delayed this Patriots-Broncos game a week. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I cannot see them playing at least on Sunday. It would have to be Monday or Tuesday. My guess is they will not play this week. It'll be interesting to see what happens. But if that game did happen, I think the Broncos, they got a lot of young stars, a lot of guys that are going to be good in a few years. But I think the Patriots, especially if Cam was to play, just so dominant in the run, and that defense shows them a lot of looks. I just think they're the better team, so I'm going to take the Patriots. Next game, got Jets versus Dolphins, two teams that are, meh. Obviously, Jets, worst team in the NFL, just lost their running back. It's getting worse and worse for them. I think the Dolphins, despite, maybe having a bad record, are a good team. Fitzpatrick is playing great. Playing amazing. Seems to be off and on certain weeks, but when he's on, man, is he a good player. They've got good running backs that they rotate in and out. Gesicki at tight end is serviceable. Devontae Parker as a wide receiver is a great option. That defense struggling somewhat, but that defensive line has actually been pretty effective against the run and pass. So in that one, I think the Dolphins are the better team. I want to take the Dolphins. Next game, Packers versus Bucks. I think this is probably the game of the week. Obviously, Rodgers versus Brady. Who doesn't want to see that, especially with Brady somewhat struggling and Rodgers, succeeding to the highest level? I think it'll be a fantastic game. Rodgers right now is unstoppable. That Packers offense is unstoppable. They've got run, they've got pass. They can show you all sorts of different looks. I just think they're so good. And that Bucs defense is somewhat inconsistent. I think they're going to be able to take advantage of that. I think Tom Brady is still sort of feeling out what he wants to do on that offense. Obviously, last week we saw a total absence of mind when he didn't know what down it was, which is just crazy for Tom Brady. But I do think that team, despite it being 5-6 weeks into the year already, I still think he's figuring stuff out. Whereas Rodgers is just on another level. Rodgers and the Packers know what they're doing. They know what they want to do. They got their sights set on Super Bowl. I'm going to take Packers. Next game, Rams versus 49ers. This is an interesting one. As obviously last week, Garoppolo was back for the 49ers, but played awful. I mean, he was overthrowing, underthrowing, wasn't getting his feet set. He was all over the place, but he was coming off an injury, and I've heard players say before that it's very difficult to come off no practice with an injury. So, giving him the benefit of the doubt, but I do still think he will be meh this week. I still think he's got to figure some stuff out, especially with a lot of guys being banged up on the 49ers, whereas the Rams are just such an underrated team. I talked about them last week, but they're just so good. They've got such a good defense. Ramsey and Donald, for some reason, people are not talking about them. Goff has been great. Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, they've just got weapons all over the field, and they're managing to run the ball without a star running back. Darrell Henderson has stepped in and played great for them. I'm going to take the Rams in this game because the 49ers are so beat up. Next game, we got Chiefs versus Bills, another good game, another big quarterbacks playing. This will be an interesting one. Obviously, Chiefs just picking up Le'Veon, as we talked about earlier. I think It's a great matchup. Both teams last week had some wake-up calls, I think. Chiefs losing to the Raiders, Bills losing to the Titans. I think both teams want to come out and sling it. They want to score points. They want to get stops. Unfortunately, I think they'll be good at scoring the points, but the stops part, it'll be interesting. I think the team that wins this game is going to be the team that gets stops. Both defenses have sort of struggled. I think the Bills defense on paper is much stronger, especially with Tre'Davious White, who actually did not play against the Titans. But I think the Chiefs get Le'Veon Bell. I think they're going to react to losing last week. They don't want to lose again. I think they're going to come out firing. That defense is going to be ready. The Bills are a good team. I still think Allen's a bit young. And I'm going to take the Chiefs in this one. Next game, we got Cardinals versus Cowboys. Obviously, horrible last week to see Dak Prescott get such a brutal injury, especially in his contract year. It really just sucks for him because he was balling out. Probably going to get a massive contract. I still think he'll get a big one, whether it's with the Cowboys or not, who knows. But I can't imagine he'll get the same as he would have if he would have stayed healthy throughout this whole year. And without Dak, Andy Dalton is a great backup, if not the best in the NFL at backup. But he's not mobile, and that Cowboys offensive line is so banged up. Tyron Smith out for the year. They still got Zach Martin at guard, but otherwise it's a bunch of replacements. Dalton is not mobile. He kind of needs that pocket space to throw. Looked good last week, but it was against the Giants. This Cardinals team is a bit better on defense. And I think that Cardinals offense is so dynamic. So many weapons, Hopkins, Murray, Kenyon Drake. I think they're so dynamic that weak Cowboys defense that is just pitiful at this point is not going to be able to stand up against them. I mean, they let up a ton of points against the Giants, which is a good offense, but it's no Cardinals. The Cardinals are one of the best offenses in the entire league, at least on paper. So for me, I'm going to take the Cardinals in this game. That's it for me, guys. Those are my Week 6 picks. Talked a little bit earlier about Le'Veon, Seattle, and my Week 5 recap. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. As always, I'm going to make another episode next week. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time.